Now we're going to start making the logo screen and level select screen for our game. But before we do this, I want to go through what the flow board looks like. And it's a very brief flow board where it shows all the different game modes and what we're trying to complete here. So what we're going to make is a logo screen that starts when the player starts the game. It's going to have 3 buttons, a play, a quit, and a settings button. So 3 different options there. If they hit play, that's going to send them to the level select screen where they can then select a level or go back to the logo screen. There would be a back button to do that. If they select, so they can select level 1, they can select level 2, or level 3. If they just started the game, obviously they'd only have access to level 1 and they'd have to build up. So they go through, they play level 1, and there's 2 ways to exit the game mode. They can either win, which presents them with 2 different options. So a message will pop up and say, do you want to restart the level and try to beat your score? So they can restart level 1. They could go on to the next level, and then they also have a previous option. Okay, maybe they want to skip ahead or skip back and change their settings so they can go back to the level select screen. The other way that they get out is there's actually no lose condition. If they do kind of fly off the map or whatever, we can respawn them. But then the only way to exit is to pause the game and then select the exit. And then that would go ahead and take them also, I'll link it with this one, back to the level select screen. So they don't necessarily win the game, but they would go back here. Like I said, if we have time, we will make a additional game mode where we'll go ahead and work on some settings. So we can have an additional game mode for settings, but depending on whether or not we get there, they'll just head back into the logo screen from there. So this is a basic layout of our flow board for the game. So to start on our logo screen, we'll have to go into Unity, and let's go ahead and create a new scene. Make sure that this one is saved first. There's no asterisk for me, but I'm just going to do it anyways, just to mimic what you should do. Save both the scene and the project, and then we'll go ahead and click on New Scene. Everything will clear, we'll have a new scene, and right off the bat, let's go ahead and save scene as. It'll bring this menu up. We want to go into our Scenes folder, and we're going to call this one the logo screen. Save that. If we look on our scenes folder, we should see 2 scenes now. And up in the top left hand corner, you should see Unity, and then after that you see the scene that you're working on, and then after that you see the project that we're working on. So unfortunately we called the project the same thing as this scene right here, but we can change that later. So the majority of what we're going to be doing in this is working in the game screen. We're going to be working with viewport coordinates. Viewport coordinates are very different than scene view. Scene view, you have a origin, which is 0, 0, 0, such as this main camera. If I go ahead and reset it, it's going to go to 0, 0, 0. So we have left and right, forward and backwards, up and down. Has its rotation and its scale. When you look at an object in game view, only certain objects use viewport coordinates, unless you specify otherwise. So for example, GUI text and GUI texture both use viewport coordinates, where the bottom left is 0, 0, the top right is 1, 1, and then any percentage within there. So the first one we're going to be doing is making our buttons, but instead of doing GUI buttons, we're just going to create GUI text. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to my quit button, and I'll change the text to say quit. And the text is way too small, so I'm going to increase it. 60 looks about right. And I'll go ahead and change the X and the Y. Actually, you know what? Let's put it in the middle of the screen and just kind of tower it. So I'm going to make the anchor be in the middle center. So this is where it grabs the text from. So instead of think of the GUI text in a box instead of the top left is its anchor point, and it's now going to be in the middle center. And when I set the X to 0.5, that puts it in the middle of the screen horizontally. 0.5 and the Y would put it in the middle screen vertically, but I do want it to go a little bit down. So maybe 0.26. Again, your preference, you put it where you want. In the text alignment, I'm going to put it at center. Alright, we're going to have a few of these GUI texts, so I'm going to create an empty game object. I'm going to call it buttons. I'll reset the position, and I'll child my quit button to it. I'm going to duplicate my quit button, and I'm going to recall it settings button. And I'll change the text to settings. Looks like it's over top of the quit button, so we need to move it up, something like that. Again, your preference, you put it where you want. Duplicate it once again, and we're going to make a play button. And change this to play. Once again, move it up. There we go. Looks pretty evenly spaced. So we could do the same thing for our logo and show the name of our game. However, to be a little bit more creative and to show a GUI texture, we're going to actually create a logo for our game. So I'm going to save this, save the project, and let's go into Adobe Photoshop. File, New, and let's make this a little bit bigger, so our width is maybe 400 and our height we can leave at 200. Still at 96 and again transparent. Control 0 to zoom in, and I'm going to select my text tool, and I'm just going to type in the name of our game. We called it Rollerball. Alright, that text was way too big, so in order to decrease the size of the text you can do Control T. Grab the side. You can change it any way you want. However, if you hold down Shift, it keeps the current dimensions and just makes it a little bit smaller. So I'm holding down Shift as I grab the corner and change the text size. So I changed it there. If you want to change the text font or the font family, you can highlight the text using the text tool. Come up here to the text box, click on it, and then you can use the up and down arrows to select a font that you would like. Something like, that was kind of cool. I like that. Alright, so we'll keep that. I'm going to select my select tool. And now I'm going to add some properties. So very similar to what we did with the textures, we just double click here. It'll open up this layer style box. We'll do some stuff. So I'm going to be-level and emboss it, meaning that it's going to look like it's a little bit more 3D. And you can go ahead play around with these settings as however you like. I'm going to put in a gradient overlay. Something like that looks cool, but I'm going to make the gradient a little bit smaller and towards the bottom instead of the top. So let's pull it this way. Alright, do a stroke to make the text a little bit wider. There we go. Alright, I kind of like that. It's a little small though, so I'm going to increase the size a little bit more. There you go. And again, you can play with that as much as you like. However, I do want to add in a sphere so that it shows the kind of the main essence of the game is to move around a sphere. So I'm going to go down into my shapes and my ellipse tool. Actually, you should create a new layer first. Layer, new layer. Voila. And now I'll go ahead and create my sphere. Again, if I hold down Shift, it'll allow me to make it perfectly spherical. You do that. Oh, I didn't select my color first. Well, it's pretty easy to fix. I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to change the properties and do a color overlay anyways. That's normally how I color my shapes. And I don't know, we'll do, since my player is yellow, stick with yellow. We'll give it a stroke, about 1 pixel. Looks okay. We'll be-level and emboss it. Soften it up quite a bit so to make it look more spherical. Ooh, there we go. That's what I'm talking about right there. Make the depth a little bit more. Okay, and you can see the shading right here with the global light. Kind of shows how it's going to look on the sphere. I'm just going to make it bubble a little bit more so you get that brightness on the one side. Kind of looks like the light's coming in there. I'm going to go ahead and shrink it. So I Control T, hold down Shift, shrink that. You can even make the sphere be one of the words. I actually kind of, or one of the letters rather. I actually kind of like that rollerball, like that. Let me shrink this down a little bit, and I'll replace that O. That's there. something like that. That's pretty cool. You can also do any types of drawings if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. And just to show a little bit of creativity, I'm going to take my brush and smooth it out a little bit and decrease the flow. And let's choose this color. So what I'm going to do is click my color palette. And then if I hold it over anywhere other than the color picker, notice I get the eyedropper tool. So I'm just going to select one of these yellows. Actually, let's do the blue instead. I'm going to select one of these blues. Instead of dissolve, we want normal. I'll shrink this brush size down a little bit. Alright, let's increase the flow a little bit, and I'll just cover over it. Change properties on this as well. I'll put a stroke around this as well. One. Change the opacity a little bit. Change the color of the stroke down here. Again, I'll come over here, pick one of these yellows. Let's do a little bit leveling. That looks kind of cool. Like that. And what I'm actually going to do is put this behind the other layers, and now I can do something like this. Put it behind it, change its size a little bit. And now it looks like the decal goes with the text. Alright, and last thing we want to do is go up into image, and we want to trim any of the transparent space around the corners. It just makes it a lot easier to work with. So we'll do trim, leave everything as is, hit OK, and it'll trim the transparent around the edges until we get the dimensions we want. Alright, so we're going to File, Save As. When we do save it, it's not going to be a texture that's applied to an object. It's actually just going to be a sprite. So let's go ahead and create a new folder called sprites. A sprite is basically just a graphic image. You can include multiple images on the same sprite, but for now we just have this logo image. So in my sprites folder, I'm going to call this logo. I'll minimize this, go back into Unity. You should see your sprites folder now created. Inside of here we have our logo, and it is a texture. If you change this to having alpha is transparent, notice it has this white background. If you check this, that means any white will be changed into a transparent pixel. Hit apply. So now if we want to create a GUI texture for this and show it up on the game view, we just need to have it selected. The easiest ways to have it selected, go to Create GUI Texture. If you create the GUI texture with this not selected, it'll still put it in, but then you'll have to change its properties. For example, it'll create the GUI texture, and then this will be blank. Just drag this sprite into the texture box, and then it'll show up. Again, it's using viewport coordinates, so I'm going to, whoops, didn't mean to do that, increase the Y. And the size is a little too small, so what I'm going to do is increase the size. So my width may be 600 pixels by 200 pixels. A little taller, 210, still looks a little small. Let's do 700 by 250. I like that. Alright, so we'll scroll this over. Actually, this should be able to stay 0.5, and we'll explain these properties here. So we have a width and a height. Notice the pixel inset. So what this is saying is it's actually picking the anchor point. So if you set this to 0 and 0, the anchor point of the object is the bottom left-hand corner. If you do an inset that is negative 1/2 of the width, it's now going to inset it to the left 350 pixels, and it will now grab the center of the image left to right. If you do the same thing with the Y value, it'll grab it in the middle vertically. So now our anchor point of this GUI texture is in the middle. Alright, and now we can transform it up and down. So the whole reason I did that is so I knew it was exactly in the middle at 0.5, and we can set the Y to what we want. I want something like that, but it's close to the text. So what I'm going to do is grab the button's parent object and move this down. There we go. So we have our logo and our 3 buttons. But now we have to create some functionality into our buttons, but we'll save that for the next tutorial.